Hello, and welcome back to the NoScore Review Show. I'm your host, Nick. This is episode 9, and today I have two guests with me. The first guest is a show regular at this point, I would say. Matt Schmidt is my first guest joining me. Welcome back, Matt.
I'm happy to be here again.
It
Seems
wasn't
like this
too
is
long
now.
ago.
No, it seems like it was less than a week ago that I was back here.
Mere days you were here reviewing Pinocchio with me.
It's true.
Pleasure as always. And the second
Indeed.
guest is making their debut to the NoScore Review Show. Scott Milne is joining me this episode. Hello, Scott. Welcome. You've finally been able to make your debut.
Yes, I'm excited. I mean, it feels like, we're just kind of doing the same as always, but we're not.
Same but different.
Same but different, yeah.
And this week, the three of us are going to review Andor, the newest Star Wars show from Disney and Lucasfilm. The newest Disney Plus show. I guess I don't know if it finished or it started before Tales of the Jedi, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think when Tales of the Jedi dropped, it dropped everything.
Yeah, it was all 6 episodes at once.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Because they're all just little baby episodes.
Yeah, which I still haven't seen yet, but I want to.
Me too. Yeah, that's next on the docket for me.
Lots of good Dooku stuff in it.
Hell yeah!
There we go.
Yeah.
We covered our review show for Tales of the Jedi right here.
That's it.
That's that little soundbite.
Yeah. Cut out this chunk and then just put it as its own
re-upload it on its own video. 5 second. It could be a YouTube short. We've got our bases covered.
This is for your TikTok crowd.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. For all you youths out there.
Yeah.
We're gonna review Andor. And we're just gonna, I guess, get into our general thoughts. With our general thoughts, we're going to avoid spoilers. This will be no spoiler territory. And then once we get into the nitty gritty, the highlights and lowlights, then we'll get into spoiler territory, and I'll make that very clear if you don't want any information on the show. So general thoughts. Scott, how about you start us off with your general thoughts on Andor?
My initial general thoughts with it is that this is the good, surprising go-to kind of Star Wars show that when you're kind of looking for that newer Star Wars stuff that is really trying to blend together some of the animation stuff, but then with more of the realism of the movies and everything, this is that show. Especially when we're working off the kind of narrative tone that we get to with Rogue One and everything.
Totally.
This show really helps build up into that from kind of where things kind of stand with the Empire and its control over the galaxy and everything.
Totally. Yeah, it's a nice continuation isn't the right word because it's technically a prequel to Rogue One, but it matches that tone and mood perfectly and almost goes a little darker I would say,
100%.
Because you don't have that that hope theme that Rogue One has, right?
No.
So you kind of get to go more into the dark side, no pun intended, of the Empire rule and everything. Matt, your general thoughts?
I totally agree. I think Andor is really what Rogue One should have been in a lot of ways.
Sure.
I'd have to check my facts on this, but from what I heard, after the first cut of Rogue One, test audiences really didn't like it because it was too dark for them. So they had to change a lot of things and make it add in the jokes and make it a little less gritty for the mass audiences.
Right.
And then I'm guessing since they sort of saw the success of Rogue One, how it was and how people liked that, they allowed, is it Tony Gilroy? Is he the one? Yep. Is he the creator? They let him come back now with more creative control and really be able to sink his teeth into this dark sort of war-like atmosphere of Star Wars that I think a lot of people have been wanting to see for a long time. Like, this is
And
Star Wars for adults, really.
totally. And not in the way that like Clone Wars has been. Like Clone Wars is a kids show, but there's stuff for the adults too, right? Like this is
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like hard and fast. Like I honestly can't think of really anything in the Andor show that kids would enjoy.
Other than the
So
droid, maybe.
yeah, yep.
That's
There's
about it.
totally the droid for sure.
But yeah, other than that, this is just like it's like a spy thriller, rebellion story.
Political drama,
Yeah, it's
political
just like
intrigue.
great characters, great acting. Everybody's taking it seriously. It's just a really well-made show. And
Yeah,
you could have taken this out of the Star Wars universe and it still would have worked. This could have worked on
Oh yeah.
Earth.
yeah.
And you just replace it with a couple different countries and whatever, and you're good to go.
Yep. Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise. We can kind of go into our expectations now. My expectations didn't exist with this show. When this was announced, I was very puzzled. I was like, why are they making a show about a like supporting character or a character from an ensemble of a prequel in which all those characters die? Like, why is this getting made? Um, but I was pleasantly surprised. Like even the trailer didn't even sell me that much. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, this could be interesting based off the trailer. Like I do like that little window in the Star Wars timeline of after Revenge of the Sith and before A New Hope, the transition from Republic to Empire is like fascinating, especially anything centered on Order 66 and all that stuff is always
Mm-hmm.
great in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think this works for kind of just more recent year Star Wars content. Probably the other big thing that covered this period was Jedi Fallen Order, which
Mm-hmm.
that's kind
Yep.
of more so taking more towards like the kind of beginning of like the Empire and everything and the early years of that, whereas this is like the later years, right? This is still leading up to what is eventually Zero BBY, and
Yeah.
kind of just how like the Empire has like really branched out its control of like everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Totally. Matt, what were your
Uh,
expectations?
well, I would say that I had decent expectations, but not ridiculous, because Star Wars has done a good job at making me lower my expectations over the last few years. But Rogue One has, and I've said this for many years, has been the best thing I think that Disney has put out since acquiring Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And I was excited to see them coming back to this story. And I think that sort of because of that underdog status, because, you're not bringing in like huge characters that have a lot hinging on them. Like in the case with Boba Fett, like there's no story that they could have come up with. And in the Obi-Wan show, for that matter, there's no
Mm-hmm.
story they could have come up with that would be better than the fans' headcanon.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
there's nothing they could do that would make it live up to that. So I think focusing on the smaller characters is a great idea because there is no expectations there for the fans and you can do what you want with them. And I was very pleasantly like, my expectations were fulfilled. I watched the first 3 episodes in like one night and I was like, yes, this is what I wanted. This is like the perfect thing that I needed right now and that Star Wars needed to reinvigorate this. And it's just like, I don't have much to say other than expectations fulfilled
Yeah.
in spades.
The freedom they had, I can imagine was like influenced a lot by you already kind of know the end of Andor's story, right? We
Yeah.
saw it in Rogue One.
Oh yeah.
So they didn't have to focus as much on story or plot of like, okay, where is this character going to end up? We kind of already know that, so they don't have to
Yeah.
worry about it, and they can kind of focus more on the like why this character is the way he is and how he got here, right? and it was fantastic. It was fascinating to
Yeah,
watch
like
in every one of these like arcs throughout the show, continuously pummeling at Andor and like pushing him into this corner of,
yeah,
okay, I am gonna start rebelling and become part of this movement, right?
Hmm.
Sorry, Scott, I
they
kind of cut you
they
off.
definitely give him just enough plot armor, so that like they can continue to break him down.
Right.
Like it's just enough plot armor that it's just like, we're not going to kill him, but like we're definitely going to get him to breaking points where it's just like,
Hmm.
yeah, nope, I'm now going to be all in with like this fight against the Empire. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and it never feels like it's forced. Like you never feel that Cassian is surviving something that he shouldn't.
Hmm.
He's always being
yeah,
resourceful, and he's always getting himself out of situations with his own skill and with quick thinking. And it's not just somebody misses or he gets saved out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of cause and effect with
yeah,
everything, and it's just such good writing. Honestly,
and
it's
I almost, because I am one of those people, and I mean, like, I think most of us go to Star Wars for the space wizards with laser swords, right? Like
hmm
that is
hmm
one of the defining factors of Star Wars, but like
one would
it's
argue the defining factor.
yeah,
one would argue that. um and but like, after, especially after this onslaught of Disney content, especially focusing on the space wizards, it's very refreshing to actually see something that's not in that vein, that isn't Boba Fett.
yeah,
um and like, it was nice that they didn't have to incorporate the rules of the Force into this at all, especially in the
Yeah,
case of like the stakes for Andor and everything, right?
yeah,
Even Rogue One didn't necessarily rely on that much, but it was still
except for that
present, kind of.
amazing last scene.
Well, yes, yeah, the arguably best scene in all of Star Wars ever.
I would argue that
yeah,
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 I
personally.
would agree. Um, so yeah, it was very refreshing, a very refreshing take, um, on this type of Star Wars story. I mean, there really hasn't even been anything like it before, that has been this character focused and this, um, not experimental, but just like risk takey, I guess,
Yeah,
yeah.
for lack of a better word. And it landed. I think it landed. My expectations were
Oh yeah. I mean,
exceeded.
because you compare that to something like the sequel trilogy now, where
Yeah.
it's like we almost took no risks with stuff,
no,
Well, yeah.
and
At least
when
one of
we
them specifically.
yeah, yeah, um it was really good because then it allowed them to play a little bit more in the galaxy and have these very character driven moments, but then have a good accompanying story to it that like continuously really drove them forward
Hmm.
towards what eventually happens with like Rogue One and with what happens with all the characters as well.
Totally. Yeah,
yeah,
I think, I don't remember the specific tweet, but it went something along the lines of like, Star Wars is a universe, not a genre. Like,
yeah,
Yeah,
use it as a backdrop and use those tools at your disposal, but don't make a Star Wars script, make a film noir script, or make a rom-com even, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
use those tools and then make a compelling story with those tools. Don't rely on them, but
yeah.
like,
Which
yeah.
I think we kind of maybe originally got a little bit with like Mandalorian.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was like
As
a Western, right? It
yeah,
was just a
totally.
space Western.
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
It Go ahead, Scott.
which I mean, it continues to like change and evolve different things. I mean, with season 2 of that, we definitely just got a little bit more of just like, okay, now it's like the action figure hour where we're just going to have everybody kind of just meet up, even though
Yeah,
it's not it's more so kind of fan service than story driven stuff, which
Yeah.
then continued with Boba Fett as well. How we might come back from that, I'm not sure, but Definitely
I
the
don't know.
opposite here with Andor, where it's like, no, we're going to be kind of using stories and genres to um, kind of showcase and tell us a little bit more as to like what's going on in the galaxy.
Yeah. Well, and explore more of the galaxy too, right? Like
Yeah.
we've been on Tatooine for God knows how many films and
God.
television shows, like,
Yeah,
or
come on,
sand
get me
planets
out of
in
there.
general. Like,
Yeah.
We get it. It's easy to shoot in a desert.
yeah.
Come on,
Yeah.
let's do something different.
Um, yeah, I agree, Scott. Mandalorian was fulfilling some of that like refreshment I think we wanted and needed, but then like
At
as
least with
season
season
two,
one.
with
Yeah.
season one for sure, yeah, it was definitely had more of its own identity and wasn't relying on a lot of these legacy characters and situations and storylines and what have you.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, as we've gone on with season two and Book of Boba Fett now, they're it seems they're leaning away from that in service of the action figure hour, and they're getting a little too excited with being like, oh, I loved all these characters as a kid, let's try and put them all together, right? Like I think it's
Yeah.
most the Mandalorian stuff is most compelling when it's about the Mandalorian and the new unexplored corners of the galaxy
Oh
we
yeah.
get to go to with him. um so yeah, like I said before, it was Andor is just so refreshing. Um, and yeah, my
Yeah.
expectations were
And
I
exceeded.
think that Mandalorian sort of, once it got big and it hit its stride with the first season, then the higher ups started sticking their fingers in it a little bit more. Because
Yeah.
from what I hear, essentially after the the sequel trilogy, I guess we're calling them,
Hmm.
uh, they were basically like, okay, just go do whatever with this to Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. And then after it became a big hit, it felt like they were really trying to tie it into other things and
Yeah.
build up the universe and be like, oh, let's try and put these characters in it so we can sell their toys too.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
and I really hope that it doesn't become the case with Andor season 2. And I really hope they just allow Tony Gilroy to do his thing.
Me
And I
too.
would assume so, because I think he's already written, like he wrote both seasons together
Yeah.
and had it ready to be like, we're doing
Wow.
2 seasons, 12 episodes each, then it's done.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's also the way to go. You know?
Totally. Yeah. Well, now having been or having gone 20 minutes in to the show, I think we can wrap up the spoiler-free talk. I
All
actually wasn't
right.
even really keeping
We're
track
good.
of if we spoiled anything, so
I don't think we
hopefully that
did.
went well. I think
I
we did
was
pretty
keeping
well.
that in mind the entire time. So yeah.
Yeah.
Good, because as the host, I was not. um, so yeah, this is your spoiler warning for Andor season 1. If you do not want to know any details about the show, pause the video, maybe come back after you've watched it. And yeah, we're going to get into highlights and lowlights, and this is completely spoiler filled. So get out now, or if you don't care about spoilers, then stick around. Matt, we'll start with you. What were some highlights and lowlights of the show for you?
I'd say for me, highlight definitely be episode 6,
Okay.
the heist episode, which I
Yeah.
think, start to finish might be one of the most consistently exciting and well crafted hours of Star Wars that we have ever gotten, because it's
Yeah.
just wall to wall, like great moment, action, unexpected twists happening. Like you have all these characters that have been introduced, and then half of them, most of them die within that
Mhm.
episode, and
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I
So
thought these were
much.
going to be
Yeah.
like, it's a real, I hate to say it, but like Game of Thrones kind of moment with this show, where
Right.
they just start, killing off characters, and you don't know who's safe or
Yeah.
who isn't, and the
Yeah.
tension is real, and you're always, now from that point on, you're like, oh shit, anybody could die at
Yeah.
any time.
Yeah.
They did that really good build up with like the episode before when like he's first, on what's it called again? Aldani. Aldani.
Aldani. Yeah.
Aldani, yeah.
Yeah, and like he's kind of like training and getting into the groove with everybody. He's just like, okay, we got the plan for the heist here, and then when it goes to pop off, and it's like, okay, it's like really popping off, and it has to go. So
Yeah. It like the two prior episodes, because they are like 2 3 episode arcs and then a 6 episode arc kind of throughout the
Yeah.
show.
Mhm.
The two prior episodes do such a good job of introducing the new characters and the rapport Cassian has with them. Um,
Mhm.
but then it also sets up like, okay, this is how the plan is supposed to go. We're going to do these specific steps. And then that's what makes the 6th episode so great, is then we're on the edge of our seat being like, okay, we know the plan. How the hell is this going to go down? Right.
Oh yeah.
And
Mhm.
we don't know, like Matt said, like aside from Cassian and I guess Mon Mothma, I think are the only
Yeah.
two pre-existing characters of the show. Um,
Mhm.
we don't
Well,
know.
and Forrest Whitaker's character, but he
Right.
doesn't show up
Yeah.
until
Saw
later.
Gerrera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saw.
Um, but yeah, aside from those few characters, we have no idea who will survive. And that is another great thing about introducing new characters and not heavily relying on pre-existing ones. Because, like,
Mhm.
we know those stories already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do
Um,
whatever you want with these people, and nobody knows where
yeah,
it's going to go.
yeah, totally. Do you have any kind of gripes or lowlights of the show, Matt?
Um, honestly, not really. I I don't have much that I can say I didn't love in this show.
Is it going to be
Um,
kind of a Pinocchio situation where you're just going to give a
it-
cop out and be like, we don't get more, and that's
yeah,
my low
it
light.
was my one gripe is that we didn't get enough of what I wanted. I will say maybe I think the what was her character's name? Bix. I
Yeah,
think Bix
Mhm.
could have done a little bit more than just being sort of the battered woman for most of the show, because like in the first arc she gets captured and then beaten, and then
yeah,
her boyfriend gets killed, and then later on she gets captured and she gets tortured, and then she's like a shell of a woman, and
Yeah.
she doesn't do much throughout the course of the story other than just being a victim.
mhm,
And
Yeah.
I feel like I would have liked to see her more doing stuff, because on the planet, what was the planet that they were on again called?
oh
Ferrex.
god, yeah,
Ferrex. Yeah. When they're on Ferrex, she seemed like she was quite an important part of like the rebellion being formed by being the communicator between the buyer and the people and organizing stuff on the ground. And we
Yeah.
only got to see a tiny bit of that from her.
yeah,
And I feel like I would have liked to see a bit more stuff going on when Cassian was gone, maybe going back and having her get a little bit more of a storyline in the second arc during the heist scene, because she wasn't really in that very much. There wasn't much
no.
going on back
Well,
there.
that's something that surprised me was like after the first arc on Ferrix, like we leave it behind, and then I was in my head at the time, I'm like, oh man, are we just not coming back here at all?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, so
And
yeah, I
the other dude, the attendant Hurt or whatever, the the dude that's chasing Cassian from
Cyril.
the Cyril, is that his
oh
name?
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Cyril Karn.
the
Yeah.
He just
TV
sort of
like been
he
like
disappears
psychopath
as
dude.
well in
Yeah.
like the middle chunks of the episodes,
Yeah,
while he's just living with his mom. And I kind of liked that, honestly, because it gave him a little bit of a rest time and everything. So I
yeah,
liked the way that they were able to have characters sort of dip in and out of the story, and it never felt like anybody was getting forgotten.
hmm
um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
yeah. I hope they give Bix and maybe a few of other characters a little bit more agency and maybe more focus in
Yeah.
the second season, but um, hopefully not at the expense of like other like more prominent characters that we've spent more time with, right?
Yeah, I
Mhm.
hope Bix's whole second season arc isn't just to stop being fucked up.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just like 12 episodes of
a healing
PTSD
arc.
recovery for
Yeah,
the whole show.
Yeah.
yeah. Scott, how about you? Highlights and lowlights?
Um I mean, Matt definitely already covered, the heist with that. But I think as well, the whole prison break episode.
Oh yeah.
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 That was like pretty great. Like when they really get into it's just like, yeah, nope, the Imperial prison system has set it up that like you're not getting out. You are here working for us now. And how they kind of really built up kind of like that iron fist with the Empire and kind
Mhm.
of like the ISB or like basically Secret Service stuff where it's just like once like you're kind of just a regular citizen and you're done. Um, and then as well just with Andy Serkis in there. I forget what his actual character's name was. As
Let me
well,
check.
Google.
He's not on the first page of IMDb.
No, I know. I was about to say the same thing. That's what I'm looking at right now too.
I was very surprised to see Kino.
Right.
Yeah.
Kino.
I was very surprised to see him return to Star Wars, but I will always take more Andy Serkis in Star Wars. He
Yeah.
Wait, what was he in Star Wars before?
He was Snoke in the sequel trilogy.
Oh,
He
right.
voiced Snoke.
I
and
forgot
mocap
about
Snoke.
that.
Yeah,
but voice and mocap. So
yeah.
because apparently,
Like what little
the
time
industry
he
relies
had
on
as
Andy
Snoke.
Serkis to do all of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always count on Andy
Um,
Serkis for mocap.
Yeah.
What little time in the sequel trilogy he had was like fantastic. I loved it. But yeah, I was happy to see him
Yeah,
make a
it's
return
just
as
a
a new character.
shame his fucking whole character was just a bit of a
Let down.
joke tossed aside.
Yeah. Like it gets to the end, like they succeeded with it, and they're just like, oh, can't swim, and then we're just left with that. And it's just like,
Oh,
okay,
I was talking about Snoke.
Snoke. With
Woke.
But Swoke.
Yeah.
But
This is the
yes,
future of Liv wants.
I have a feeling that his character is going to come back in season 2.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
He would have found a way out of there. Otherwise, they would have killed him.
Yeah, they would have showed him dying. I think in some heroic way or something.
Yeah, like they didn't show him getting like shoved off the edge or anything like that. Like it's
exactly.
Just he's just all of a sudden paralyzed with that fear there and kind of backs away. So, but yeah, definitely, I think that was a highlight. And then obviously when they do like the end credit teaser, where it's just like we were building the Death Star the whole time.
Yeah, that was a sick shot.
That was
well,
cool.
And it's also showing like, okay, we've got this rebellion that's starting. We really need to like time to get that laser going. Like that's the next bit.
Yeah. It's cool. In another review I watched for the show, they pointed out how it was very cool that they planned out like, oh, Cassian kind of had a part to play if only a tiny part in building the Death Star in some semblance, and then he kind of has that redemption arc come full circle. It was kind of nice. That's a nice way to like tie in the pre-existing story, right, to this whole character, and not have it be like deep or anything.
And speaking of that as well, the part when he was down in the sewers, and his buddy, I forget the guy's name as well.
The big guy.
The big guy comes in and reads him the letter that his mom wrote for him. And then it was talking about like, you are going to be an unstoppable force for good and you are going to do great things. And just knowing where his story goes. And like that started to make me like, I was choking up a little bit during that monologue there.
Yeah. That was very good.
It was such a powerful moment. It was one of the highlights of the show for me as well.
Totally. Yeah. Sorry, Scott, you want to finish off your highlights and lowlights?
Yeah. Maybe if anything was maybe in the lowlight category was just kind of how with Mon Mothma stuff kind of really trailed off. Like, definitely she's giving us like that perspective of just like, hey, here's how things are in the Senate now, even though we're totally under the foot of the Emperor and stuff, how it's kind of just an absolute smoke show there. Like the Emperor is going to do whatever the hell he wants anyways. and kind of like her whole thing where it's just like, yeah, I'm going to be funneling funds into the rebellion and stuff, but kind of like my way of doing that is going so kind of setting up more of that, how she eventually absconds from all that and it's just full on rebellion support.
Mhm.
But I think just towards the end it just got a little bit slow with her, and it's like, we've kind of seems like we've covered everything we can with this season of stuff. So
It feels like in her character's case, whereas a lot of other people got a full arc from start of this season to end, feels like she's just getting one arc spread across both seasons. So near the end of this season, it's just sort of, just going along beat to beat and waiting until the next season starts so that she can start fully leaning into the rebellion. And they're just trying to kill time and give us updates throughout, because she didn't do much in the last bit other than just having conversations about getting more money.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other notes from either of you guys before I get into mine?
No.
Maybe just with Mon Mothma and just kind of like the person she's with, Stellan Skarsgård. Yeah, I can't say his name. But as Luthen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That monologue at the end, like, in particular,
episode 8,
so good. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And the space battle as well.
Oh,
holy
man. The tension in that scene.
Yeah,
when
I was not expecting him to be so badass either.
Right?
Yeah.
Just the way that
just
antenna
annihilates
just
that
blew up.
tractor beam.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was sick.
Oh yeah,
that was sick. I just wish it was so longer, because it was just it was tension, and then boom, in a minute it's done, and you're like, I wanted more.
Yeah.
Yeah, but blinking you missed it, which is what exactly like all those Imperials did, right?
Yeah, totally.
Just like, oh, yep, nope, we're gonna do this, and then
and they missed it.
Totally catches them off guard. Yeah.
Very much missed it. Yeah, that kind of goes into one of my highlights, is just like the cast and the writing for the characters. Like, there was some weak points, like both of you pointed out, but the like all of these characters that we were introduced to, for the most part, had really compelling moments throughout the show, and they all lent to Cassian's arc in some way or another, of like, if it was with the Aldani heist, like a few of the members in his like heist party or whatever, the young guy, what's his name? Is he on the first page? He's not on the first page. The idealist rebel with the notebook.
Yeah.
Really instills a lot of like rebel ideologies and reminds Cassian of why they're doing what they're doing, right?
So much. Like he must have probably had of that group, he probably had like the most impact on Cassian then.
Totally. Yeah. And then also, even in the same party, the like, I think his name was Skeen, the guy that talks with Cassian after they've done the heist. It's like a reflection of himself, like, and how he, like, and then he just murks him. He almost kind of kills off that part of himself a little bit, right?
I think I'm getting a really big delay with you guys.
Yeah, we have a pretty big delay, I think.
Yeah, it's okay.
Does that edit or like does that fall into the recording at all, or is it just like this feed?
It's usually fine in the recording.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered most of the highlights and lowlights. Quick shout out, I guess, to the score. I was pleasantly surprised with the score of this show. It had a very distinct sound of its own.
Yes.
It like felt a little reminiscent of like Blade Runner at times, which was really cool. I really enjoyed that. And it was just a stunning show to look at too.
Hmm.
I heard apparently it wasn't shot on the volume at all. It
Makes
was like
sense.
all actual sets, actual locations, and yeah, like cinematography was stunning the whole time. The
Oh yeah.
the eye scene at the end of the heist was amazing. Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay. Let's move on to creator goal. And do you think they achieved it? We'll start with you, Matt. What did you think?
I mean, I think we had make a gritty Star Wars story for adults, and they did. Because movies and shows have been pandering to the child audience for so long, trying to get like, that new generation of fans in. But I don't think they fully realized that, the old movies are still attracting young fans. Like, people are showing their kids the Star Wars movies, either the originals or even the prequels at this point, because a lot of people
Yep.
that were children when those
Yeah.
came out have their own kids now. So you don't
Yeah.
just need to be constantly pumping out content to attract the new fans. You should be making content that appeals to the lifelong fans as well. And this is the
Yeah.
Yeah.
case where they really, I think, struck gold. And I
Hmm.
hope, and it's a bummer that this is getting such low viewership compared to the other ones.
Yeah.
But I think that's just,
Totally.
they're just appealing to a smaller audience, but still a very dedicated audience.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
hopefully they realize that just because it's not doing the numbers as something else doesn't mean it's not as good. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think they really knocked it out of the park, and can't
I
wait for
uh,
season 2.
I would say that um, kind of. I mean, in the same vein of what you were saying, Matt. Like George Lucas has gone on the record, however many times, saying Star Wars is a kids movie, kind of right, or like
Hmm.
for all ages. But at the same time, the kids at the time of the original trilogy have grown up now, and
Yeah,
they're maybe getting a little sick of the all ages machine
Yeah.
that keeps turning out content, right? Like
Yeah.
they want to see something a little more intriguing with a little more character depth. There's a place for those popcorn big budget blockbuster movies, but like
Nick, are you talking
when
about the Marvel universe right now?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
There's no problem with the MCU.
Yeah.
not at all, right? They only put out great
No.
movies this year.
Yeah, only good movies and only good shows as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think actually that was the other really nice breath of fresh air with Andor, was that I think I was just coming off of She-Hulk and going into this, and it's just like, holy crap, serious characters
Hmm.
where not everything is a joke every 5 minutes. So
Yeah, yeah,
this
I
was
agree.
I would say this is probably for anything coming out of like the Disney machine in 2022. This is probably it. So
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I
this
think
is
it's
it for
one
sure.
of the best series to come out of this year, period.
yeah,
Yeah, not even considering Star Wars.
It's one of the few
Um,
times where I can
yeah,
say that the lack of humor was really refreshing.
yeah,
Usually
Totally.
I think it's the opposite that comes to mind, but in this case, it's like, yeah, minimal jokes. There's maybe one or two jokes an episode, and they wouldn't even be like obvious jokes. They would be subtle little things,
yeah,
mhm.
which was such a
Yeah,
nice touch.
they the Marvel formula, I would say, has started to even seep into other entertainment as well at sometimes.
oh
So
yeah,
that's really made a lot of entertainment feel samey
Yeah.
and safe. So
yeah.
yeah, this one this one I we can't say a breath of fresh air enough, I don't think. Um, Scott, you were going to say something?
Yeah, but like it definitely, it is kind of that good. I think my train of thought has already escaped me.
That's okay, because I remember what I
Yeah,
was going to say now.
please.
I just wanted to also like make a point of the darker tone they were able to land and the more adult themes and everything. I think it's really nice to see, and I really hope they are able to capture that in future
Mhm.
stuff, especially with stuff that uh covers the like Jedi and the Force stuff, because like that's what we
Mhm.
love about Star Wars, I would
Yeah,
say, right? So like if you can blend those things together somehow of really compelling, gripping character
yeah,
growth and entertaining story, and then also have laser sword battles and space battles,
yeah.
then like it's gonna be a hit.
Well,
Yeah, fingers crossed for Ahsoka.
Fingers
Really,
crossed. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
um,
I don't know.
and
Yeah, I
and
feel
to
like there's a lot hinging on that character.
so much, and just to build on that, actually, Nick, in order to like kind of have some of that tone and stuff, without having like your Vader or Emperor, um, where it definitely does go like the darker tones of, yes, we're living within the imperial system, and this is just how oppressive it can be without having like the enforcers there.
Yeah,
Um,
totally. Yeah, you don't need a guy with a red lightsaber and a black
yeah,
cloak lurking around every corner to have that tension, right?
yeah.
Yeah, because
Because
So
I think it.
oh, uh,
You go ahead.
I was going to say, because like they actually really relied on that in Obi-Wan,
yeah,
where it wasn't just simply Vader, it was like all sorts of Inquisitors as well, which
yeah,
that was all very weirdly handled as well.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I didn't even finish. I tapped out after episode 3. I was like,
That's
eh.
okay.
yeah,
That is
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Um, but like, I mean, that series definitely was relying so much on nostalgia juice as well, while trying to
Yeah,
weirdly tie in some of the comic stuff that was going on, but it just
yeah,
felt very mediocre with
yeah.
things, as opposed to this.
It was almost
So
like entirely fan service. Even going back to throwing out the "hello there" as the like very
I mean,
last.
yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah,
You can at least be like a little more subtle with it, right?
yeah,
Um, but I was just going to mention as well, like this is, I think, the first time since the original trilogy that Star Wars has had such a strong social commentary to it as well. Because the
totally.
first ones, as everybody already knows at this point, is like a metaphor for the Vietnam War and American imperialism trying to go in and control places and the rebellion and everything. And there's so much of that in Andor as well.
Mhm.
Speaking of like the current political climate, like especially with the prison sequence, it felt a lot like that was just talking about what we were dealing with right now, and the government's controlling everything and watching everybody. It felt very modern, and
Mhm.
it felt really true to what Star Wars originally was. It's
Yeah,
not just a show for kids with like whatever story to just push the action forward. This movie or this show uh, has something to say.
Yeah,
yeah,
It's not just fluff.
yeah.
hmm
Um, which I think Cyril is like a good character with that, because even though the imperial system has beat him down as well, even though he was like a security officer for like a subcontract system of like the system, he was still willing to like throw his life away for it.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's just that like toxic patriotism where
Yeah,
he's
hmm
so attached to the institution that he just wants to keep supporting them even though they're treating him like shit and they basically threw him away.
yeah,
hmm
yeah,
And that you see so much of that today, especially down in the US, with just people that are still unwaveringly supporting the government in a lot of things even though
hmm
they're quite literally stripping their rights away
yeah,
in front of
yeah,
them.
yeah. It handled political intrigue and drama way better than like I think George Lucas tried to do with the prequels. I don't
Oh,
know
geez.
how much. I'd have to like go back and like watch endless amounts of behind the scenes footage to know
And there's a
exactly
lot
what
of
he
it.
was trying
Yeah.
to do in terms of the politics side of the prequels, but like it seemed that there were too many eggs in one basket with that. Like
Mhm.
you can't focus on the downfall of the Jedi and focus on Anakin's turn to the dark side, and then also have intriguing and interesting political like
And have it wrapped up in 3 hours if you can too. So
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, or like
Yeah.
4 hours or whatever. Yeah. The show format, I think, lent itself a lot to this long form storytelling, even though they were still able to have these condensed arcs within like every
Yeah.
few episodes or whatever, right? Um,
And I think
I
that
think
made
that
it so much stronger as well,
yeah,
because the writers said that, I think specifically, yeah, like Tony Gilroy was saying that he only knows how to write for features, and he doesn't know the TV format. So that's why it feels like, oh, we've got a 3 episode arc, and that helps keep the series so strong and consistently interesting over 12 episodes, because it's not like they're trying to tell one single story over the course of the whole season. It's
yeah,
like
Yeah.
tightly packed little bunches,
yeah.
and
You could easily just
it's so
watch
good.
each arc on its own if you
Yeah.
wanted,
Yeah,
right? And
that's
still
exactly
get
what I
something
did
from it.
as well.
Yeah. It what was I going to say? It's not like kind of Obi-Wan with what I read about Obi-Wan, where when it was initially pitched, it was pitched as a movie, right? Or like a
Mm,
trilogy even.
Yeah.
Um, but then like they were like, no, we're not going to do movies for Obi-Wan. And then they dusted off the old pitch script that they got. And after the success of Mandalorian and Boba Fett, they're like, okay, we're going to make a show with this. This is only 90 minutes worth of content, but you're going to make 6 episodes.
Yeah.
Like they're playing to their strengths, right? Which is
mhm.
like, just do that. Like you don't need to make a 10 episode show for something if the writer who's passionate about this project only has 4 episodes worth of story to tell, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
but this show does it very well.
Yeah.
uh how soon do you guys think you will rewatch it? Because I'm assuming you will rewatch it at some point soon. Do you think you'll
I
rewatch it for the second season?
I don't know. I might wait and uh just watch the second season when it comes out, and then when the whole thing is done, I will watch start to finish and then Rogue One at the end.
Totally, yeah.
Ooh.
I think that's probably what I will do. But it also depends on how long it takes for us to get season 2.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Is it coming out next year?
I don't know if it's been confirmed
Next
yet.
winter?
Yeah.
Because it says on the IMDb page, um, 2022 to 2023, and it has Diego Luna listed as 24
Yeah.
episodes for those 2
Okay.
years. So
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe they were making both seasons at the same time.
I was just gonna say, yeah, maybe
Perhaps.
they did
Uh,
that.
we'll see when they put a. It says, I mean, IMDb says season 2 premiere in 2023, but that could be total bullshit and just added in by somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Who
and with
knows?
delays and everything, it might change too, right? Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah, it's a definite rewatch for me in the future. I don't know when that will be, but definitely want to rewatch it, and I will definitely tune in for season 2. Do you
100%.
guys think it's worth the price of Disney Plus subscription?
I don't even pay for my Disney Plus, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Well,
I'm in a situation where basically I just always need to be subbed to it, so in order
right.
to entertain kids and stuff. But it was
Gotcha.
nice to like finally have something new and fresh on there that I could actually enjoy watching.
Yeah.
So
Cool. All right. We're going to move into pros and cons. A little bit of a rework to this as well. Like in the Pinocchio episode, we're just going to do one pro and one con each. So I don't know, Matt, I guess you can start. One pro and one con of the
Pro.
show.
My pro is, you know, uh,
Maybe Scott can go
complex
first. Oh.
characters. Complex characters for sure. Very well written, very three-dimensional. They feel like people. They have motives. Everybody's unique. Great monologues. It's really like it's a big ensemble, and everybody is pulling their weight. I don't think I can point to any one person that I could say is like the weak link of the cast.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody does a really good job, and there are definitely standouts, but across the board, everybody's great. And my one con would be maybe that the pacing in some of the episodes can be a little bit slow. But that being said, there's always payoff that makes the wait worth it.
Yeah.
So even if you're feeling at times that it's dragging a little bit and there's not enough happening, there will always be something coming that will forgive it all.
Yeah. Scott, how about you?
I think my pro is that this is some really good Imperial era storytelling. There is like a lot out there. It isn't always necessarily good, but definitely this stuff is kind of telling and showing those points of view of kind of the more so regular people during the Imperial era, and who is willing to put up with the Empire and who is actually, you know, seeing the value in restoring the Republic. So and as for kind of cons, I mean, mine is kind of just the same note, is like, you know, a little bit of just pacing stuff with it, but in the end it's always worth it. So
just goes to show you how little there is to dislike about this show.
Exactly.
My pro, it might be a little cheaty, but well, you know what? No, my pro will be for the people who haven't checked it out and are maybe a little hesitant on like, oh, I don't know if I want to watch like a political character drama show. There are still A plus. Wait, sorry, no scores on this show. There are fantastic uh, uh, set pieces in this show, and I would also almost argue that they like. I would say they maybe even like one up each other every time throughout the show. Like it only gets better and better throughout the show. One of my favorite set pieces was the like in the first arc in the third episode, I think, in that warehouse with all the chains and engine parts. So well done.
Yeah,
that was great.
Like,
yeah, a fantastic gunfight.
It felt very real.
Felt
even
very
though
real.
you knew like this has to be CG, but they blended it so well.
I think that was maybe another thing we kind of just looked over, was just how well all these worlds were built that we went to.
Totally.
With them being like even actually Coruscant stuff. You know, I felt
Coruscant looked great.
Yeah,
it was so good.
Great whole new taste on like a planet that like we're long familiar with, but like kind of just seeing very different sides of it. So
yeah,
and it wasn't just like CGI backdrops of it, right? And a bunch of like interiors.
Yeah, like you compare
like, outside.
Comparing the look of Coruscant here versus the prequels, it's like a completely different place, but it still feels familiar at the same time.
Yeah,
totally.
Especially in the Senate when you go into that very familiar giant dome, and it's so well done, so well
every
conceptualized. Like I can't
get
over it,
and like just well constructed. It feels like you can like reach out and touch it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the set pieces are fantastic. The space battle, the brief space battle we got was amazing. The whole prison break sequence was amazing. Another thing I just want to point out before I get to my con is that kind of going back to it being its own original thing too. they didn't lean on not just like legacy characters and like legacy items or whatever, but like they didn't lean on, like it could have been so easy for them to be like, okay, in the prison area we could put a trash compactor scene, right? Like they didn't heavily rely on like almost any of like these pre-established
Oh yeah,
um areas that we've like visited in previous films and
Yeah.
shows,
yeah,
and they were still able to produce really compelling set pieces and really compelling locations. Like the whole way that prison worked was
yeah,
fascinating,
yeah.
right? All right, my con is really, it more so just boils down to like personal preference, uh, and something that could, I really hope, be built upon in the future is I would have loved to see more aliens in the show.
Hmm.
I don't
There.
know how, like I get it from a like filmmaking standpoint. Um, like it's just very hard, especially in live action. You get way more leeway in animation or like
Yeah.
games or whatever. But I just want to see more live action alien
Yeah.
characters, man.
Like I was almost expecting us to see way more aliens in the prisons and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think part of like the established stuff with the Empire is kind of like how weirdly xenophobic they can be as well.
Mm,
But
yeah.
then to like kind of not have then much at all, like you didn't really have too many wandering the streets of Ferrix, or
Right.
you didn't have too many aliens like at Mon Mothma's parties and stuff. Like it was
Hmm.
still just kind of
They were
lots of
very
humans.
lightly dispersed throughout the
Yeah,
show.
yeah,
For
And
sure.
surely that would have been a budgetary thing.
Totally. Yeah.
And I hope that they fix that up a little bit for season 2, and
Hmm.
maybe they can put in some more like, just give me some more Twi'leks. I
Yeah.
want some more
Yeah.
Twi'leks.
Yeah. Um, yeah. One more. I'm kind of cheating with this whole section, but another like favorite scene. What a hook for the show! That first scene where Cassian is stopped by those two
Yes.
ICB. Is that what they were called?
just the pre-more security
ISB.
people.
Yeah, those two security personnel.
Yeah,
Like, holy
Yes.
crap! I like sat up in my seat when that scene finished. I'm like, oh dang,
Yeah.
yeah,
we're going here.
I knew that from the first watch of that scene. Like the point when he's holding the gun to the downed officer's head,
Yeah,
begging for his life. I'm like, okay, this is
here we
where
go.
we see what kind of show Andor is going to be. Is he
Yeah.
going to show mercy? Is he going to let him go? And he didn't. And I'm like, all
No.
right, all right. Now I'm
Yeah.
in. Like
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
this is what I've been waiting for.
Fasten your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Yeah, so good. What a hook.
And one final thing that we also haven't quite touched on was the rebellion at the final episode, the speech that Cassian's mom gave on the hologram that
Yeah,
was riling people up, and then
Oh yeah.
everybody fighting back against the Empire, and the
the
pipe
the
bomb that the dude throws and that
yeah. Oh
blows
my
up the
god.
whole,
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
like that stuff was that was such a
the
beautiful like
grenades
feeling
kept
of
going off
catharsis.
and going
Yeah,
off. It was holy crap.
and then all the dust in the air and everything. That
Yeah.
was such a well done cathartic explosion of action, and
Yeah.
it was
The
such a
dude,
like a great
Cassian's
ending.
friend, beating that one Imperial officer with his mother's ashes brick.
Oh.
Yes, with the
It was
brick.
so good.
Oh.
That was
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
when the dude came over and kicked over the droid, I was like, no, and then everybody started fighting.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he like Spartan kicks the one dude into the
Yeah,
ground.
oh,
So good,
so
man.
good.
Yeah. Well, I think I can answer the next question slash section for all three of us. I think we would all recommend this to anyone who's a Star Wars fan, anyone who's
And even
an adult
non-Star
Star
Wars
Wars, anyone who's
Yeah.
not a Star Wars fan. It's very like not light on the Star Wars universe, but it's not like in your face of like, and I mean like not having Jedi and lightsabers and whatnot, and a
Yeah.
lot of blaster fights really helps. But yeah, it just feels very distinct and on its own. Yeah, it's definitely a more adult show. So like it's not something you can watch with your kids, I would say, unless they're like maybe like teenagers or something.
They would be
Um,
instantly bored. So
yeah,
I think
yeah,
if they're
exactly.
older than 12, you can probably get them
Totally.
into
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
depending on if they like other kind of like
Yep.
war-ish movies, and if
yeah,
Totally.
they're more action centric, because
But then
it will deliver on those things.
at that point too, if they're not interested, literally go and try any other Star Wars thing that's out right now.
it'll be fine for them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They aren't hungry for content, I don't think.
No,
Um, cool. Any other quick notes before we get to the outro?
I think we've said everything that needs to be said.
I think so. I
Yeah.
agree. Well, that'll do it for this No Score review show. Thank you all for watching this episode. Thank you both to my wonderfully astute guests for being on this show. Matt,
Always a
where
pleasure.
can the people find you?
You can find me on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/wisdom nugget. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can find my Instagram through Letterboxd as well.
As many
And
people do, I'm sure.
yes, it has happened a few times of
Yeah, there
people
you go.
tracking me down from there. And you know what? Fine by me. Cool.
Fine by you.
Expand
Any
the
other
network.
recommendations?
Recommendation is Skinamarink.
Yeah.
It's not really publicly available right now, but if you really want to watch it, you can find it online.
You didn't hear it
Um,
here, but you
you
can
didn't
find
hear
it.
it here, but you can find it places. It's going to get a streaming release at some point, hopefully in the next year, if not a theatrical release.
Mhm.
Check out the trailer online. It is a horror film like no other. It is
Will change you.
very low budget. It will change you. It was made for like $15,000 over the pandemic, and just wow, it's like being put into a child's nightmare, and it really recreates that feeling of when you're in complete darkness and then your eyes just sort of start picking out things and making shapes in the darkness, and it captures that feeling so well. And yeah, it's a movie that will stick with you for a long time afterwards,
Hell yeah.
for sure.
The complete opposite of what we've been talking about for the past hour,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Very much
Um,
so.
Scott, where can the people find you?
You can find me wherever you type in Scoptimus7.
Nice.
I do dumb YouTube videos. I don't know, sometimes stream on Twitch. But you can also always find me on the Out of Focus podcast with
Hell yeah.
Nick as well. So
Yes,
I
I do
think we've
another
got
podcast with
yeah.
Scott and our friend Michael as well, where we explain different video game. It's like we cover video games, movies, and television there as well, but it's way more uh,
Dumb.
uncut and dumber and
Yeah.
Oh,
just like shooting the shit. It's way more
Yeah.
chaotic, I think, is the better way to
Yeah.
put it. Um, and
so
we
you
also
could
have a
say it
YouTube
was
channel as
less
well.
focused.
Exactly. We're a bit out of focus
A
on
little
that
bit.
podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we also have a YouTube channel where we do movie commentaries as well, and those are hyper edited.
Yeah.
We have some good ad breaks in the Planet of the Apes commentary,
Yeah.
uh, and yeah, it's just absolute
Yeah.
chaos. So go check that out if you want. Um, any recommendations other than your plug?
I would actually
What you're
recommend, just
playing,
because
watching, listening to?
yeah, I would say probably like the last good thing I've played and enjoyed was Tunic.
Yeah.
Great indie. That surprised the hell out of me. I was expecting, just a Zelda like, and it turned out much, much more than that. So,
Yeah.
if you got Xbox Game Pass, you can get that for free.
Hmm.
So,
For free. Yeah.
yeah,
An isometric Zelda-like with Souls-like combat elements and whatnot, and the menu game help system is like a
yeah,
bare bones, really interpretive game booklet, reminiscent of like the old 80s and 90s game booklets that used to come with the games.
Yeah.
Or game manual, I guess. It's very good. Yeah. You can find me at NoScore or at NoScore Reviews on most of the things. If you're hungry for more review show content, I just did a episode with Matt reviewing Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which will be on Netflix coming soon. We got to see it in the theater. And what was before that? I did my first thoughts on God of War Ragnarok for that. And speaking of which, if you also like Let's Play content, I have my Let's Play channel on YouTube at NoScore Plays, where I'm playing God of War Ragnarok right now. And that's about it. So thank you all again so much for watching this episode of the NoScore Review Show. Thank you again, boys, for joining me.
Always a
And we will
pleasure.
see you in the
It's
next
always
one.
the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye.